Hey mate, how you doing?
Good, you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. You keeping well?
Yeah, keeping well. Can't wait to get back on a golf course at some point.
I bet. I appreciate you. Appreciate you joining us today on Tour Talks.
No worries.
I know you've been.
Anything for you, Trottie?
Well, mate. I mean, I'm not running you ragged at tour events, so it's the simple fact that I get to talk to you on here. This is the new norm.
Perfect.
Before we get going, then, I saw you out this morning doing an Instagram live. Tell me, how's the struggle going with the hair? Are you? What's the plan for cutting it? Are you just growing it out, or are you just going to go for it?
I'm sort of growing it out. I've got a bit of a new style going, but it's like, I mean, if it's sort of slicked back, but if I sort of put it forward, it's so bad. Like that.
I think it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most. I did a home haircut the other day. I looked like a mix between Chris Waddle and the Tiger King.
I've been pestering Erica to do like the back of my neck because it's like, it's terrible. But anyways, like I'm trying to stay as tidy as possible, and I'm trying to not look too homeless before we get back out there.
And you mentioned Erica. I know that you've got a special anniversary tomorrow, right?
We do, yeah. We're married 3 years tomorrow, so
congratulations.
Thank you. She's stuck with me for 3 years. I'm not quite sure how she's done that. She's got the patience of a saint, but we're not really going to do much. Obviously, we can't do much, so just a nice dinner in and try and enjoy that.
And it came out that your number 22 on the golf ball that you play on the TP5 that's based around your anniversary, right? 22nd.
Yeah, I just it's one of the smarter things I've done. I've put 20 on my golf ball just so I don't forget when our anniversary is. So
you can stay in a good place when you hit a bad shot. Not that happens very often with you.
Happens a few times, but yeah, at least you can remind yourself of better times when you're stuck in the trees.
So before we bring people in, and we're gonna pass this over and ask a lot of questions and bring people in. Obviously, the golf ball you mentioned 22, and it has a personal reason to you. What I really want to know, when you took part in the TaylorMade Bounce Challenge, because I know you haven't been playing much golf, but you pinged the ball out over your fence there.
Yeah,
what was on the
straight back over there?
What was on the other side?
So I live on the Bears Club, so we live on the 12th hole, but I'm pretty sure it went out onto the 11th hole. I sort of struck it pretty well. It probably went about 150, I would say. I actually went out to look for it afterwards, but I couldn't find it.
That's funny. So are you low on golf balls? Because I'm sure that I know that TaylorMade's still shipping. We can send you some if needed.
I think I'm okay at the minute. I haven't. There's some brand new one. I think the balls that I was supposed to play with the second day of the Players' Championship are still in my golf bag.
So when you think about clubs, and I mean, you mentioned at the top about trying to get back to playing golf, and when you think about the return, when will that actually start up for you? When will you at least go to the bag and see what clubs are in there? Because I had a little look at your what's in the bag from the survey before, just to think if we'd even talk about that. But I do know you've not been playing. But so when does that amp up and start that you go, all right, I'm gonna have to have a look at this?
I mean, I've got the itch. Like, I don't have any sort of golf stuff in our house in terms of simulator or putting green, or like you see the setups that Ian Poulter has, or Justin Rose, or some of these boys have got these massive golf rooms in their houses. I don't have anything like that because I sort of and I live on a golf course, so I try to separate myself a bit. When I'm home, I'm home. But when I'm playing golf, I'm playing golf. So, but I must say, there's 4 balls on the rug in the family room at the minute with a cup, and I've been hitting a few putts just to do something. So like the itch is like it's been 5 weeks, and the itch is getting back in there. So I'd say I'm pretty I'm ready. I mean, I think hopefully the golf courses here where we live are going to open again at the start of May. And then if they do, at least I can start getting back into it, do some practice, try to find the middle of the club face. And then, I mean, obviously they're saying that we're maybe going to start playing again on the 11th of June. So at least that gives me a good, 5 or 6 weeks to get ready.
And so that we can relate to it, because everyone is in the same situation. You know, people are itching to get back, and very similar to you, not a lot of people have a setup. When you hit those putts at your house, is there anything even technically, or is it purely just to feel the ball on a club and just be like, yeah, you know, I recognize it's coming back. So mentally start the process, because you're doing a ton of Peloton. We've all seen that. I mean, Christ, you've probably done the Tour de France 15 times, haven't you?
I'm probably in the best shape of my life at the minute. So it means I can have a nice bottle of wine and a nice bit of food tomorrow for our anniversary. But it's more of a mental thing, Trottie, more than anything else. Just that I love the feeling of wanting to go to the golf course and improving. I mean, I used to get this feeling as a kid. You know what it was like growing up in the UK. You'd watch the PGA Tour golf on a Sunday night, and you'd get this buzz of watching it, and then the first thing you wanted to do on Monday morning was grab a golf club and go play and like try to emulate whatever you saw on TV the night before. So I'm sort of getting that way. Like even watching the reruns of the Masters last week, watching some highlights of myself, all that sort of stuff. That gives you the buzz and the itch to want to start doing it again.
I mean, it must be such a cool feeling to watch. You relate it to being a kid, and obviously the Faldos of this world when we were kids, and Tiger was a bit after probably when we were kids, but you know, you relate it. It must be such a cool buzz to watch yourself, and that give you the juices to get flowing.
It does a little bit, and I think as well, you always sort of gravitate towards the tournaments that you know, there's some wins mean more than others to you, and I always try to go back to, like, because there's some tournaments you win where you don't feel like you're swinging at your best, but you just get it around and you do enough and whatever. But then there's some tournaments where you feel like you're swinging really well, everything's in sync, and those are sort of the ones you want to go and look at. You want to see where your swing was, how you felt, sort of how everything looked. Can you sort of remind yourself of some of those feelings? I think that's where, you know, that's cool when you can go onto YouTube and sort of look at that stuff.
And I think that, you know, I have 1,000 questions for you, but I have the luxury of asking you them when suits. So let's bring a lot of people in here. And that's the way this has been successful. I'm sure hopefully you can read this, but what's the one thing that you would tell someone to practice the most in their game? So aspiring or even just amateurs wanting to get back.
Yeah. So, look, I think for me, everyone's got parts of their game that are better than others, right? I drive the ball, like the driving is the cornerstone of my game. If I can drive the ball well and keep that really strong, you know, chip away at the so-called weaknesses. I think that's a good place to start. You always need to base your game off something. You know, everyone that you look at on tour, or even, you know, players that are at your home club, they all do something better than, and that's the base of their game. Obviously, you want to try to get everything as good as possible, but you know, I wouldn't go and focus on one area in particular at the detriment of everything else. You know, if you're a great iron player, keep that iron play as strong as possible, and then just chip away, and, you know, maybe try, you know, improve a little bit around the greens, or try and improve from inside 10 feet or whatever it may be. But I wouldn't, you know, golf is a game of, you know, all the aspects have to go together. And I think it's very important to not neglect any one area of the game to try to get better at another, because I feel like if you do that, you can go down the wrong path. And all of a sudden, yes, your weakness might get a little bit better, but then the really strong part of your game might suffer because of it. And, you know, that's not so good either.
So you will never have a practice day where you don't practice a certain area of your game. So, and how does your practice day look? You know, we're going to be returning. Will you hit shot shapes? Will you visualize? Will you hit mid irons to targets? Will you put long putts, short putts? Like, how do you structure it to get the most out of your day?
Yeah, so you know, we're very lucky on tour that we can use a lot of stats to determine where we need to practice. You know, I can go on to either the tour website or our man James Cornish and TaylorMade, and I can see, okay, you know, this part of my between 200 and 250 isn't as strong as it should be, and I can go work on my long irons. So I think that's one of the privileges we have as pros, is the fact that, you know, all our stats are there in front of us and we know exactly what's weak, what's not weak, and we can go out and do that. If there's certain golf courses that you need a particular shot on that's upcoming that week, I think as well, one of the big things for us is we're always looking ahead. We're always looking to, okay, what course and what tournaments next week? What do I need to do well there to have a chance to win that tournament? So a lot of my practice days are structured around the tournaments that are coming up, weaknesses or you know, things that I've shown in previous tournaments that aren't maybe up to the standard that I want them to be, and that's how my day's structured. And I don't put a specific time on it. I don't put a, you know, but I structure it so that at least when I come away from the range or away from the golf course, I know, you know what, that feels better now than it was at the start of the day. And that's sort of how I go.
Okay, so that's brilliant. And I've been fortunate enough, and it's been amazing to see the analytic stuff that comes to you through, you mentioned James Cornish, and it's amazing. And it looks at individual golf courses, and then it breaks down your play. And I can see that being fantastic as a player. And I know My Round Pro from TaylorMade is as close as we can get to that. But on this question that I've just flipped in here, how differently are you thinking about Augusta in November? Because the schedule's gone right upside down, but there must be big things, I know the answer to that you focus on and you look towards, but now you don't have data for Augusta in the fall versus Augusta in April. So again, how do you plan? What's the process?
Yeah, so look, it's the same golf course, right? I mean, it's going, before we go to Augusta, we know that we have a pretty much an idea of where the pin positions are going to be each day. You know, we know the golf course inside out. We go back there every year. It doesn't change too much unless they make a huge change, and, you know, like the 5th hole last year, for example. So look, Augusta in November, it's going to play longer because it's going to be a little colder. But honestly, I think, if anything, I think the course is going to play very similar to the way it played last year, because last year, if you remember, it wasn't that warm. It was sort of soft. I feel like they softened it up for the women, and then it never really recovered. And there was rain at the start of the week, and it never really recovered and got as firm as they wanted it to. So the course played a little slower. And for me, it was the slowest I'd ever seen the greens at Augusta. So that was a bit of an adjustment, and you could, you know, you don't really feel like you can be ultra aggressive on the greens or around the greens at so yeah, I think it's going to play similar to last year. I think it's going to play long, but I think it's going to play, you know, unless they get a really dry spell, it's going to play sort of soft and sort of slow, and obviously that'll benefit some of the bigger hitters.
So with it playing softer and slower, I know you've played around with this a lot this year. It wasn't in your bag at TPC Sawgrass, but do you see a rescue getting in there? Do we see a return to Rory McIlroy for Augusta?
Rory McIlroy could certainly be making a comeback at Augusta. Yeah, look, the rescue club's been awesome. I've used it a bit this year. I could definitely see it being an advantage into the par fives that week. I could see it being an advantage into the 4th hole. You know, if you get that north wind on the 4th, that hole can play really long, and a rescue could be really good for that. Yeah, you know, that could be a really. The only thing about Augusta is I always go back and forth whether I need 3 wedges or 4 wedges, and then that depends on the setup for the others. You know, the other end of the bag. Yeah. Do I carry a 3-iron? Do I carry a 5-wood? Do I carry a rescue? So, but I've sort of, I guess this year, for the most part, I've sort of went to a 3-wedge setup, and I've enjoyed carrying the 3-iron in the bag, and then I sort of go between whether I want the 5-wood in the bag or the rescue.
And is that a fair thing to say, that when I saw you at Torrey Pines, 2 golf courses when you play the Farmers, you got the North and the South, and I honestly, like Monday afternoon when Harry turned up, or Tuesday morning or whatever it was, there must have been 6 wedges, I mean, literally in the bag. Is that where you start each week? You go, okay, What are we going to do with wedges? And then tackle the problems from there that are ahead of you, or the challenges?
Yeah, pretty much. And then the thing is about Tory, the north and the south, they require different things. So at the north course at Tory, you might carry 4 wedges, but then on the south course, and it's longer, and some of those par 5s and long par 3s, you might want to carry the 3-iron and have 3 wedges. So it really depends, and then you have to look at where the wind is that day, what directions it's coming from, what holes play, what direction. That obviously has a bearing on what clubs you choose. But yeah, I mean, I carry my pitching wedge, my 52 degree, my 54 degree, 56 degree, and my lob wedge. And then from there, that's when I sort of decide what I want to do. But yeah, it's almost dependent on the day, where the wind's coming from, the way the course is playing, where pin positions are. I mean, and that's stuff that obviously Harry looks at before, the night before we get the pin positions off the tour. And then, you see where the wind direction's coming from, and you make a plan going into the next day.
Before we pivot to this question, because I want to ask one on my own, and we've got a ton, and I appreciate the input from everyone. But the rescue story that not a lot of people will know, that was a photo shoot, kind of like hidden gem, right? It was in the bag. And do you just want to tell us the story? Because no one else had one that week, right?
Yeah, no one. And I don't know why one got into my bag and no one
Me
else's.
Maybe we're trying to tell you something. Whoever built it's trying to...
I know, exactly. But then once I was like, I've never used a hybrid, and I never really, I don't know, just something about them. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I'm like, well, if you can't hit a long iron, you shouldn't be playing on tour, type of thing. And then I think once I hit it, and once I saw the flight of it, and once I saw like how stable it was in the air, I've always had this thing with hybrids where they go a lot, like they go left easily. And this thing was just going bullet straight, and it was unbelievable. And then everyone came around my bag and saw me hitting it. And then from there, DJ wanted one, and then J-Day wanted one, and, whoever else. But it was funny. Like, it was such an accidental thing that, this rescue ends up in my bag, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I want to play this because, this is way better, but also way easier to hit than a long iron. And I guess my thing as well is I've always been too stubborn to carry one. So I've never used the technology the way I probably should. But at this point in my career, I'm like, if the technology's there to be used, I mean, just use it and use it to your advantage.
And I feel like you've really embraced that. You mentioned James Cornish. You work obviously with Adrian Reitveld, myself, Keith Sabarbaro. You've really, really embraced that. And I think that it's a good lesson. And there's so much stuff in there for this next question about advice you give to junior golfers. It feels like you leave the ego at the door now when it comes to equipment. But I imagine there's many other things as to advice you could give to someone aspiring to become a better player as a kid.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and this is one thing, look, be open to every idea. I think that's one of the big things is don't be afraid to take on board new ideas, opinions. But one of my big things I always say to junior golfers is play with people that are older than you and play with people that are better than you, because that's what you need to see to get to the next level. And that even at my level, I still try to seek people out that are better at me at certain aspects in the game, and I try to play with them. So I think always trying to play with someone better than you. Maybe they're not better overall than you, but a better wedge player or a better putter or a better iron player or whatever it may be. Always try to play with people that are better than you, because that you see what you need to do. You see where you need to get to the next level. Yeah.
So there's a question coming up here, and I'll drag it in for us now. And I think it's quite an interesting one. Obviously, there's a ton of US followers on Instagram. It's big across the stage. But as we look at schedule and we get forward to it, Ryder Cup pending here for the end of the year, Who on that US team would you like to partner in a Ryder Cup? I like the way that you've never even thought about it. It's like, it's just not even in there, right? Just the passion.
It's not at all.
I guess, is there any game that would work well with your attributes and how strong you are at certain areas of the game? That's the way you'd obviously tackle it, right?
Yeah, you would. I mean, there's a few guys. I mean, you could say someone like a DJ in foursomes. We play a similar game. I'd love to hit iron shots off his tee shots. But I mean, if there was one guy on that US team that I'd like to play with, just personality-wise, and think that we would do well together and have a lot of fun, it would probably be Justin Thomas. I think JT is such a fiery competitor. I respect his game so much, and he would be fun to partner, but it would be way more fun to beat him rather than to partner him.
I love it. So with that, Ryder Cup is going to be end of the year. Premier League football, I know you're a big soccer football fan, is coming. It is hopefully going to conclude the season, and it might, there's a chance it might be played. I haven't followed the news super close on this, but behind closed doors without fans. Should the Ryder Cup go down that route, I mean, what's your view? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
No,
what's your view on that?
I have a pretty strong view on this, Trottie, and I get the financial implications for everyone involved, European Tour, PGA of America, broadcast partners, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot that goes into putting on the Ryder Cup that people probably don't know or don't appreciate. But having a Ryder Cup without fans it's not a Ryder Cup. So for me, I would much rather them delay it until 2021 to play the Ryder Cup than play it at Whistling Straits without fans. And that's from a European going to America, knowing that I'm going to get abuse. Obviously, it would be better for Europeans to play without fans because we would deal with some of the stuff that you have to put up with. But at the same time, it's not a right. It wouldn't be a great spectacle. It'd be no atmosphere. So if it came to whether they had to choose between not playing the Ryder Cup or playing it without fans, I would say just delay it for a year and play it in 21. And then if they do delay it until 21, the next Ryder Cup's supposed to be in Italy, and we know how affected Italy was with coronavirus and COVID-19. So it gives that country an extra year to prepare for the Ryder Cup in 23 instead of in 22. So look, there's a lot that goes into it, and this is only one opinion. But if we have to play the Ryder Cup behind closed doors this year, I'd rather just delay it and play it in 21.
Yeah, and it's great to hear your opinion because it's so compelling. But when you look at tournaments, I mean, someone's asked a question here. I can guess your answer from this, but tournaments happening without fans, I guess, is a different scenario versus Ryder Cup, right?
It's a little bit of a different scenario. It's individual events, and I think, individual events aren't quite the spectacle that the Ryder Cup is. So I have no problem with golf events going ahead without fans, but it still needs to be done in the right way. So, but yeah, look, I just want to play as soon as we can again, and whether that is with or without fans, if it means that the first few weeks we play without them, it'll be a weird atmosphere, but at least people can watch on TV. And it gives us tournaments to play in and competition again, which I think we'll all welcome. Yeah,
for sure. Here. And then on a different note, when you look back at your Ryder Cups, what's your favorite moment? Paris, Celtic Manor. I mean, there's been some.
Probably Medina. It was on TV again a couple of days ago, and just that comeback. Playing with the Impolter on Saturday afternoon. He birdied the last 5 holes for us to win that match, and then we all go out on Sunday and win our matches, and it was one of the biggest comebacks ever. That's probably still to this day my favorite my favorite moment in golf, my favorite moment I was a part of. To win like that as part of that team, and sharing those celebrations with everyone else was a pretty special moment.
Yeah, it's obviously rare in golf that you get those team celebrations. I remember watching that myself. It was unreal. So I want to wrap up to here, letting you go, but I've set something up because I knew, and apologies, I can't get rid of this last question, but it's a good one, so we'll leave it. So what I've done here, and I want your advice on it, one of the questions I get a lot from the tour is about wedges and about bounce, okay? Yeah. So what I've done, I've set up, and I'll walk you over there, in the corner of the room here, we've got the kids, because I know you don't have your golf clubs near, but we've got a little flag. We've got a little flag set up, and we've got the, it's a hard pan shot, because I actually am practicing, because even though you're not, I'm trying to keep my hand in, because yours will come back a lot quicker than mine. So
hopefully.
Yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to set it up, and I want to know, I've got a bag full of wedges over here. I'll just show you. I brought them in ready. Got a bag full of wedges. If you've got this hard pan off the rug into the corner of the kitchen floor, what exactly would you suggest that I go with bounce-wise? What would be your recommendation?
My recommendation would be to go with the lowest bounce possible.
Okay. And when you get to the Open Championship, where it's almost as firm as my kitchen floor, do you find your bounce based on chipping, or do you start on full shots, or do you start in the bunker?
I mean, I think one of the great things about grinds on wedges nowadays is that you can have the dual sole, right? You can have the front edge of the sole have less bounce, and then when you open it up, the back edge has more. So I mean, we are blessed with people like you on the truck that can sort of figure that out and can grind them the whatever way we want. But, a dual sole is, to me, it's the best of both worlds, right? You've got that sort of flat edge on the front half of the sole, and then you've got more of the camber and more of the bounce on the back edge. So perfect for chipping and then perfect for bunker play. Okay.
I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. People like me. Right, be nice then. I'm going to have a chip. I've got my lowest bounce wedge, and I want you to tell me if there's anything on this golf shot here that you would make me do better. It's already, but hang on, it's got a chance now. It's just turned off left. What advice then on when you're practicing? What advice can you see from that little one shot I've got there? I don't want to keep you looking at my chipping all day.
It looked a little inside out. It looked a little hooky.
It was. I was trying to draw it in there. That's from watching you boys play runners.
Which a draw is good, because a draw you then use the bounce a little bit more.
Okay.
You don't use, obviously if you hold it off, you'll use the leading edge more, and then the margin for error is a little bit less. So, yeah, I mean, drawing your chip shots actually isn't a bad idea if you want to try to find the bounce.
You can tell there was some nerves in there. That's why I drew it. So, buddy, I really appreciate having you on, and I hope the next time we speak is at a tour event, be it about wedges or woods or putters, and we're all getting back to what we're all missing so dearly. But thanks so much for your time, and it's great to hear your insights on golf and everything. Apologies we didn't get to training, but I can't even hang with you in that world.
Fine, I'm actually about to go to a gym session here in half an hour, but it's like the highlight of my day at this point.
Well, listen, have a lovely anniversary, and thank you so much for taking the time.
No worries, Trottie.
Cheers, buddy. Take care. Bye-bye.